When we die and go to heaven, I'm not sure it's even going to cross our minds that we no longer have our sickness and disease. I'm not sure we're even going to give it another thought. Because you know why? We're going to have better things to think about. Dear friends, we will be in the presence of Christ. We will know Christ fully. We will be able to worship Him fully, unencumbered by sin. We will be in the presence of Jesus. Before my conversion, when I thought I was a Christian, I really wasn't. When I thought of heaven, I thought, man, I won't have my crutches anymore. I'll be able to run and play and jump like all the other boys, that kind of thing. And honestly, now, I hardly ever think about not having my cerebral palsy. I hardly ever think about that. That's not what I think about when I think about heaven. I used to think about, I want to see my granddad again, my papa. I was real close to him. I want to see my papa again. Now, I know I will see him again because he was a believer. But that's not what I look forward to when I think about heaven. Dear friends, when I think about heaven, what consumes my thoughts is Jesus Christ. I will be in the presence of Christ. I will know Him fully. I will be in awe of Him for all of eternity. He is the joy and the glory of heaven. He is who makes heaven, heaven. And if your view of heaven is this big family reunion, like I hear so many Christians, at least professing Christians, talk about heaven. Oh, I can't wait to see Grandma and Grandpa, Mom and Dad. And yeah, we will be reunited with our loved ones, provided that they were in Christ when they preceded us in death, yes. But if your view of heaven is a family reunion, then your view of heaven is far too small. Your view of Christ is far too small. He is the joy and the glory of heaven. He is who makes heaven, heaven. Turn your eyes upon Jesus. Look full in His wonderful face, and the things of this earth will grow strangely dim in the light of His glory and grace. He is who makes heaven, heaven. What of the biblical record? Can we look through the Bible and find examples of faithful servants of God who were sick and not healed? Absolutely. Trophimus was left sick at Miletus. Epaphroditus was sick to the point of death. The Apostle Paul encouraged Timothy to take a little wine for his stomach and his frequent ailments. Now, I find that very interesting because Paul wrote to Timothy when he heard that he had stomach problems and frequent ailments. Paul did not write to Timothy and say, Timothy, go see a faith healer. And be sure you sow a seed into his ministry so you can reap a harvest. Take a little wine for your stomach and your frequent ailments. Wine in that day was medicinal. I find that interesting on yet another level because Paul wrote this to Timothy about the year AD 64. About the year AD 64. Let's back up 10 years to the year AD 54. What's going on in the year AD 54? The events of Acts chapter 19 are going on. What's happening in Acts chapter 19? Extraordinary miracles of healing. So extraordinary that even handkerchiefs and aprons were being taken from the Apostle Paul, delivered to sick people, and God was healing the sick through the agents of these handkerchiefs and aprons in the year AD 54. But you fast forward 10 years to the year AD 64, no handkerchiefs and aprons going forth from the Apostle Paul. What changed? Something changed, did it not? Could it be that even in that 10-year span, that the apostolic gifts, the sign gifts, tongues, interpretation of tongues, physical healing, those gifts had already begun to fade away? already begun to pass out of operation because they had already fulfilled the purpose for which they had been given. 2 years later, Paul is writing 2 Timothy, and it says that he left Trophimus sick at Miletus. Friends, Paul was with him. He didn't heal him. He didn't lay hands on him. He left him sick. Left him sick. Interesting internal evidence that even by that time, that the apostolic gifts had already begun to fade away. Job. Job is the 800-pound theological gorilla sitting in the living room of the prosperity preachers, none of whom want to admit is there. Job is a problem for the prosperity preachers because here you have Job. He was a righteous, upright man, walked with God, and yet God still allowed Satan to come and to strike from Job everything that he had. His possessions destroyed, his family dead, his own health deteriorated. Job's a problem for the prosperity preachers. So what do they do with Job? Do you know what they do with Job? They turn the tables on Job. They say the reason these calamities fell upon Job, they were all results of his negative confessions. Job spoke negative, fear-filled words, and he brought all these calamities upon himself. Job tapped into the dark side of the force. Completely misses the point of the book of Job. Misses it entirely. Dear friends, do you know what the point of the book of Job is? The sovereignty of God. The sovereignty of God. God can do whatever He wants to do. And sometimes that means making us sick. Now, do you believe that? Do you believe that God sometimes makes us sick? You tell that to someone who's been watching Joel Osteen, and they'll probably pass out right on the spot. You know, they won't be able to handle that. But sometimes God does make us sick. Why does He do that? To watch us suffer? No. Sometimes God makes us sick to sanctify us and ultimately to glorify Himself. To glorify Himself. I've met a number of people in my travels over the years, so many of them, that are faithful servants of God, and yet they're sick.